Thank you all again joining us today for our third installment of the Global School Alliance Virtual Conference. It has been once again astounding and really quite rewarding to see how this fantastic group of people is growing. The Global School Alliance is now in over 48 countries around the world. We have over 500 members within the Alliance. Seeing as we, again, have only really kicked this initiative off in May, to have so many of you lovely people with us is fantastic. Those of you who are joining us for the virtual conference today who haven't yet registered, I would recommend you do so. There will be a lot of really useful opportunities for you guys to get involved with some projects moving forward, but immediately what you will be able to do as being part of a member is you'll gain access to all of the recordings from our virtual conferences. So today we will be recording our third virtual conference, and as I say, that recording will be sent out to all GSA members. So today's conference is really all about can we take learning online? What are the pros and cons between learning online versus immersive experiences? We ourselves come from a background really focusing around this immersive experience. So quick introduction to me. So my name is Tom Camilleri. I run an organization called True Education Partnerships, which for the past 5 or 6 years has been really focused on establishing international partnerships between educational institutions in the UK and China. We have run many leadership delegations, teacher training, student exchanges, and online joint projects. So the Global School Alliance is really our next evolution, taking everything that we've learned from the past 6 years working with China, and we're now looking to open up the more channels with the rest of the world. So as we obviously find ourselves in a very bizarre year this year with COVID, I think education as a system, as an industry, and as a community has been rocked on a number of different levels. So one thing we're really hoping to help with and hoping to achieve through these conferences is to provide a platform to educators, frontline educators like yourselves, to learn from one another. I think that having this platform in so many different countries, it will really give us all a great different perspective to potentially similar issues. So again, thank you all for being with us today. Quick agenda points. So a quick intro to what the Global School Alliance is all about. A little bit of a reminder around our Facebook group for GSA members. We are in the process of building out essentially an online platform, which will allow all the members to have a lot of different functionality, but the main purpose is to provide a forum for everybody to get to know one another, to potentially communicate around collaborations. Hopefully, when the world seems to have a better understanding of how travel is investigated, for us to have an opportunity to meet one another actually in person. So the Facebook group for the time being is the best place to have conversations with one another beyond these conferences. There is a quick announcement. We will be bringing something rather exciting to the community. Then we're going to roll into guest speakers and presentations, which we have 4 awesome speakers with us today. We expect the presentations to be 10 to 15 minutes in length. No promises there, however. So we will very much go with the flow. We really, really encourage everybody to ask questions. If I ask you to, as we go through, to write your questions in the Zoom group chat. So if you have a question for a specific person, if you could write the question and just when you're typing in the sentence, just identify who it's for. If not, if it's just an open question, just fire it in there. What we'll do is we'll go through each of the speakers, and then when we come to the end of the presentations, I will look at the main themes and pick a couple of questions to go out to the speakers with. So we'll look to have some Q&A / discussions for about 20 to 30 minutes at the end. We will aim to have a succinct close at 6 o'clock UK time, but we will see how we get on. So let's dive into this. As I say, for those of you who haven't joined us as a member or an ambassador, just want to give you a quick clarification between the difference. The ambassadors are very much you as individuals and as educators. Members are really for your schools. So obviously when we move forward in time, there will be some opportunities for you guys to engage with one another and with us, which you're going to need sign off from more than yourselves. And at that point, it's really good to have your schools signed up as members so they understand all of the great opportunities that you guys will be leading. As ambassadors, we're really looking for global educators like yourselves who are really keen on having more conversations internationally, but also kind of promoting more conversations. So I'll show you in a little bit what the websites currently look like as get developed, but we'd really love to have some more content from the ambassadors with regards to, we do have Hannah who looks after the site and you guys as a community. She will be sharing with everybody. We have 10 real themes that we're looking at for the year, but we also do encourage, if you have something that you are really passionate about, if there's something you think in your teaching career or even just the day-to-day workings of you and your role, if you've got something that you're really passionate about sharing, please get it into an article, put it into a video, whatever you feel most comfortable with, and we'd love to share it with everybody else. So again, if you find the conference of interest and you want to keep involved, then please do look to sign up as an ambassador or a member. Again, the goals behind the Global School Alliance really is all about connecting schools, but predominantly through educators. So I know that, you know, we all will have a certain passion for what we do, that you can pour that into what you specifically involved with, but as soon as you start to look to engage in bigger initiatives or bigger projects, you're going to have to get other key stakeholders involved. So I understand that obviously, for example, we have found when we have done our sister school programs that if you're going to send a group of kids to China, it's not going to be all done by one person. It's got to be buy-in from a lot of other people. And so rather than trying to engage with the institutions themselves, we are really more interested around how we are providing you guys more of a platform and building opportunities where you guys can get stuck into learning more about education internationally, and hopefully when things turn around, really getting out there and getting stuck in. As I say, we really are all about immersive experiences. I've personally benefited hugely from, I've learned Mandarin at school, moved over to China for many years, and my experience of living as a Chinese person, albeit a rather large one, that was such a transformational experience to me. And I don't think, in my heart, I don't think there's any so I'm looking for, any replacement for that sort of immersion. However, what we're discussing today is where does online fit into that conversation and where does an immersive experience fit in? So again, we're really looking to provide you guys with a platform to get more stuck in with other educators internationally. Just hinted just before, we are developing a platform which we're calling our Learning Unleashed. Facebook is still the platform that communicate on. We'll be coming back out to it. Again, ideally, guys, if I know it's tricky when you're on your mobiles, so you might accidentally drop off mute, but if we can keep with that, that'd be superb. as I say, I will show you, have a look here. Basically, if you go onto Facebook and search for Global School Alliance, this is what you will find. Again, it is reserved for members of the Alliance. We will be sharing within it, obviously, the recordings of these calls. We have started something called our Pearls of Wisdom, which we're inviting all the speakers who participate in the conferences to share their 5 pearls of wisdom and to ask the community a question, which might be a shout out for suggestions around a challenge they might be having or a point of interest. So please, by all means, go over there. I know a lot of you would have interacted with us on Twitter. I still think it's probably one of the best places to find us and to have the wider conversation. That's what we're going to in a minute. So we should all be able to find the website. Again, it's still in its fairly infantile stage. We are developing it, as I say. I've been really, really impressed with how things have developed in such a short space of time. We are looking for people to share with us their thoughts, and we will be putting it out through our blog on the GSA. If you want to learn any more about us as an organization, True Education Partnerships will give you a lot of background with where we've been and where we're going with educational partnerships. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. But what we will have a little sneaky look at now is we're going to be launching this Global Educator of the Year competition, which is open to absolutely everybody worldwide. The idea behind it is we want to be able to help celebrate some of the awesome work that's going on. I don't think that educators and teachers get the recognition that they deserve. I know that everybody's super busy with the day-to-day. It's quite difficult sometimes to really be rewarded for a lot of the additional work that you guys do. So we want to be able to help with that. So on the website, and the link will actually be sent out to all in the newsletter there. We've got 3 prizes available. This again is a way to introduce some of the other opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. First place is essentially around £5,000 worth of awesome opportunity programs. The biggest and the most exciting one for me really is the research trip. So we've done this for a long time between the UK and China. I am super jealous when one of our speakers, Tatiana, came on the call and said, oh, it's 31 degrees in Moldova, it's lovely sunshine. And Angelica in Greece, oh, it's 26 degrees and it's glorious. And I got very jealous because I've not yet been out the country. So, but yeah, the plan with these research trips and leadership delegations is once things start to open up again, we really want to get everybody meeting in person. So we've already been invited by Chetna to visit her in India, which I will be the first on that list. So the idea is, obviously, this is quite a new initiative and we really want to get the ball rolling. So what I'd love to see is if we want to come and nominate an educator, just need a name, just need the school of reference and a brief explanation. If you guys really want to get stuck in, upload some attachments and files to kind of support and evidence of what's going on. But realistically, if you think somebody's doing great work, please just chuck the details in. We will be running it over the next couple of months, and we will be shortlisting the final 4, which we're then going to be running a final kind of sprint on Twitter to get some final votes in. You'll get the full breakdown of exactly how all this works in a follow-up email. Just to let you know, it is there and ready for you guys. So I think, sorry, Hannah, I missed your fantastic animations. Awesome. So again, the globalschoolalliance.com/global-educator-of-the-year. If you want to find it there, please go ahead and nominate. So first up, we have Miss Emma Platt. I will I'll give you the floor now, Emma, if you want to introduce yourself. I'm going to...
Hello, hi. Do I need to share this? I'll just share my screen.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so hi, my name is Emma Platt. I'm an English teacher at a high school in North Manchester. It rains a lot in Manchester. It's currently not the best day for nice weather, so it's nice to hear that other countries are enjoying the sunshine today. I have been an English teacher for nearly 20 years. I'm an assistant head. I've been an assistant head for about 7 or 8 years now, and I'm in charge of teaching and learning. So we're all here today to talk about online learning and can everything we do be taken online? This is what we're used to, really, isn't it? It's a typical teacher's classroom. We traditionally have taught from the front and the students sit down and interact with us in the classroom. If I'd had said to you, maybe this time last year, that actually we're all going to be teaching virtually online from the comfort of our own home for at least 5 months, I think that you would have thought that I was a bit mad, but actually that's what we do. Can you hear me? Is that all right? Okay. Is my audio okay, Tom?
It is okay, yeah. I think we had somebody off mute, so we had a bit of a feedback, but you're all there now.
Okay, thank you. So back in March, April time, all schools closed and a 5-month lockdown ensued. And then we as educators needed to change the way that we educated our children. So the first thing we thought of, well, how will our children be educated now? And we had to go remotely. So were we all ready for it? Perhaps not. Did we all embrace it? Then yes. So everybody ended up teaching remotely in some way, shape or form. I am on Twitter, at Teaching Mrs. P is my Twitter handle, and I have spoken to lots of people on Twitter about their experiences, whether it be primary or secondary. And I think from what people have said to me is that actually excellent classroom practitioners suddenly had to become experts at using tools they had never really seen or used before. I don't know whether this time last year I'd even heard of Zoom, never mind have meetings regularly on a Zoom session. So the classroom that we know and love changed overnight. Despite what was going on in the outside world, our children still needed to be educated. So 5 months ago, very little, if any, remote learning to speak of took place in UK schools because there's no real need for it. And all learning that took place was classroom based. And yet 20 weeks ago, and it is only 20 weeks ago, this all had changed. It took a global disaster to change something, revolutionise something which had evolved over centuries, and our classroom changed forever. So those of you who are not in the UK, you might not be familiar with the shop Woolworths. Back when I was sort of in the 90s, really, it was King. Woolworths was king of the high street. If you've never heard of Woolworths, it was a shop that sold music, clothes and toys. And I just want to promote this book really by Drew Povey and Laura McKennany, which is where I've got this idea from. It's a really good book called The Leadership Factor. So I have taken that section on Woolworths from it for my presentation. And basically Woolworths only 2008 was one of the oldest retailers on the high street. And it had over 800 stores and 27,000 employees. And that's basically the amount of adults, apparently, according to the book, in Great Yarmouth. And yet it went into administration Why? Well, it ignored the world around it and refused to change, I think, and it forgot to change with its sort of circumstances. And I think my point is we need to, as teachers, evolve, and we need to embrace the changes around us, which I thought was a really good point, really. So when I asked Twitter about their experience of online learning, remote learning, I was inundated with responses from all of these people here, and I just wanted to say thank you to them all for contributing to my question. I've worked closely with Teacher Paul 1978, and we've spoken at length about his experience, and Deputy Head Jones as well. If you haven't read her her article, if you like, then I'm going to mention that. I'm going to mention that later on in the presentation because it is really good. And so basically, we had lots and lots of tools for change that all the people on Twitter and I myself experienced. Myself being in secondary school, at my school we used Show My Homework, and the children were already familiar with Show My Homework because of what we'd been regularly setting online as a homework sort of once a week. And that's basically where, as a school, we had to implement a new timetable for children. So as an English teacher, the children would have English on a Monday. I would set work on a Monday, whether it be through a PowerPoint, whether it would be through a podcast or something like that. They would complete the work and maybe have to use a Google Doc to submit their longer answers. And then I would mark it. The deadline would be on the Wednesday. I would mark it and provide feedback on the Friday. And that would sort of take it in turns. So Tuesday was maths and so on and so forth. And for us as a school, that worked really well. But from speaking to other people on Twitter, Microsoft Teams was quite a popular thing. Podbean, I use that as part of the podcasts. I know that other teachers have used Loom, sort of the video recording software, not perhaps interactive in the way that Teams was, and a variety of things, and obviously Zoom, and that became the popular way of meeting and holding meetings. For us as well, when we sort of got our heads around what we were doing, form tutors and heads of year became heavily involved as well, not just the teachers, because they were having Zoom sessions with the students, speaking to them, keeping in contact with them, ensuring everybody was safe and happy. Okay, so like I say, there are a plethora of ways that different schools used remote learning online. And from my research, it showed a really, really positive interaction. It said 93% of education seekers report benefits from teaching online. 84% of career builders reported benefits as well, and 72% of learners reported gaining confidence. Those sort of results are quite strong, and I think really promote sort of online learning in a positive way. So let's talk about, for me as a school and for the people that I've spoken to on Twitter, about the things that worked well. So lots of things really. I really feel that as a school we really came together as a community. I've talked about the pastoral sort of side of things with, the subject teachers contacting students, interacting with them online. I used to get lots of lovely messages from children in my classes saying, "Hello miss, how are you? Are you okay?" And so from a relationship and a community point of view, I thought it was really strong. I think the child who struggled to be in a traditional classroom because they had a different interaction with their teacher, they might have embraced and preferred this way of teaching because they might not have had behaviour issues in the classroom because everybody was at home. The teachers that I've spoken to definitely had talked about the positive aspects of children engaging with the work that we use Twitter to illustrate, to promote, really went down. It went down well because it showed you the hard work that a lot of our students had taken over the work, and they took it really seriously as well. The children had been more creative in their own learning, and they took more control of it as well. I also think the word learning as well, it can be, what is learning? I think lots of different learning happened during lockdown. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they learned to grow vegetables in a vegetable patch, and that's learning, albeit a different type of learning. But I don't think we should forget about that kind of learning. Now, obviously, I'm an English teacher, and I think that from my year 10 class were predominantly weak, lower ability boys, and sort of trying to teach them A Christmas Carol, a 19th century novel, via electronically online. I think that proved a little bit difficult, but actually what did work well was they went off and they researched it, and they looked into the topics and the themes in the book, and I think they worked really hard, and that worked well in a way. Now, you could say to me, right, Emma, what about drama? What about art? What about music? What about engineering? And of course, the perhaps immersive side of things in that way practically may have perhaps not been as strong as they would have been if they'd have been practical in school. But I think the world was introduced to PE with Joe. If you haven't heard of PE with Joe, where have you been for the whole of the lockdown period? So I think lots of children got involved, Monday to Friday on YouTube with PE with Joe. And when you saw him, he was, people were interacting with Joe online from a variety of different countries. For us as a school, we got involved in the Youth Sport Trust when it was National School Sport Week in 2020. We had our PE department promoting a different exercise, and the children were timed on their burpees and their sit-ups. And you know what? They really embraced that kind of learning, because they demonstrated what they'd learned online, and they showed it on Twitter, and it became a competition. And I think teachers were seen, in a more human light, really, because the teachers got involved, the teachers' own children got involved, and that was a real sort of community way, I think, that remote learning sort of got everybody involved. If you look at art, so for example, how could art be promoted? Well, we use Pinterest. The art department at where I work has a really popular Pinterest account, and the children were, demonstrating their artwork through that. If you've never baked banana bread during lockdown, then again, where have you been? We had lots of children in food technology taking pictures of the things that they baked, and that was brilliant to see, really, really good. We're currently trying to promote Annie, which is our school production. But again, you might say to me, well, Emma, how on earth have you managed to do that during lockdown? Well, the children were learning lines on Zoom. They were practicing scenes on Zoom as well, and that worked well. Engineering, Dyson devised 44 engineering challenges for children during lockdown. And again, I think that it shows you that just how much remote teaching can create lots of opportunities that's effective for our learners. Now, what about the families? Homeschooling. Like I said, I have a 2- and 6-year-old, and I'm a teacher of 20 years nearly, and I found homeschooling my own children really difficult. But Oak National Academy came to rescue me, because they had promoted lots and lots of primary and secondary lessons. So my daughter would listen to the geography lesson on Oak Academy because it was a teacher, a primary school teacher, delivering her session on the continents. Would she listen to me delivering my teaching on continents? No, but she would listen to that lady. So I think there are a wealth of lessons that online really sort of helped promote remote teaching. Okay, so they're the positives, because I think I found lots of positives for online teaching, remote teaching, but I think now we perhaps need to look at what didn't work in some ways. So fundamentally, the whole profession changed, and those changes were implemented at breakneck speed. So of course it wasn't going to be without issues. Its very definition, it's remote, so therefore there was zero human contact, zero contact between me and my students physically, and that goes, again, it goes against a basic human need for contact, I think. And that said, I think the challenges fall into two main areas that need consideration for any future lockdowns or any future changes in education. Practically wise, definitely with the equipment and the internet access. I don't think for me as a school, I don't think we realised perhaps how many of our students maybe didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have computers. There's over 40% of the children where I work are disadvantaged and don't always have access to the internet. So therefore we had to come up with another way that those children were still educated. So we ended up making booklets that were sent home. But then of course those booklets, I couldn't mark them, I couldn't see what they were doing in some ways. So I think that was something that we needed to be mindful of as a school. And then on Twitter, I've been connecting with Claire Jones, Deputy Head Jones, and she told me about it was fantastic. She's a deputy head at a primary school in Blackpool, and on the day that her school locked down, 531 iPads had been sent home with the children, and they'd invested in a leasing system where the parents were going out and spending maybe £730 on an iPad, whereas the school managed to get it at a reduced rate, and where the parents would then spend £10 a month to lease the iPad and then eventually own it. It was a lot cheaper than going out and buying it on their own. And I thought that was a really, really effective way of ensuring the students were able to be technically savvy. And also I think something to be mindful of, that not all learning had to take place between 8:30 and 3:30. And I think the children, when they got their iPads, I think that they were then able to educate their own families as well. And I think that practically the infrastructure, the environment, the way that we marked as teachers changed. It had to change, rather than sort of marking exercise books, because we weren't seeing that. We used to try and use things like Google Docs where the children could type electronically, and then I'd be able to access what they'd seen and mark it that way. Pastorally, I think the heads of year came into their own. They were really, really strong. But again, teachers, around the UK, how much training did people have to be able to use Microsoft Teams, to be able to use Google Classrooms? If you weren't familiar with it, you had to learn how to do that to be able to then carry out the lessons online. So if you have a lack of experience and confidence in that area, and that was a real pressure. And I think certainly for where I work, that was the issue, that we didn't really want to add more stress to a stressful situation. So we went for something that we already used and we already were confident in using. And I think that the lack of one-to-one learning for our children, I think could have been an issue for some of our children. School is their saving grace because of safeguarding issues at home. So really for us, when our children return in September, we don't know what they have been through for the past 5 months at home. And I think maybe that's the sort of downside to remote learning, that we perhaps don't have that one-to-one contact that we're all used to. So if we think about immersive experiences, and do we think our children have missed out on playing football with their friends, being part of a school choir, being part of a dance class, going out on school trips, then I would say in some ways, yes, in some ways. But actually, if you look at the immersive experiences that were redesigned, companies and experiences, they went virtual. So, you know, if our end of year trip to Chester Zoo was cancelled, Chester Zoo, you could visit it virtually. So that would save a lot of money, a lot of aggro trying to get the coaches sorted. You could still go to Chester Zoo. And the same with the British Museum in London. You could have a virtual tour around there. The National Theatre, they released a lot of their plays for free online. You could virtually visit an aquarium. Audible, they released children's books for free, so the children could interact with reading totally for free. And on the 24th of June, it was National Writing Day. And again, we had lots of competitions, and again, the UK, they really promoted those sorts of things. So whilst I think, okay, they couldn't have an actual football match per se, and they might not have been able to go on a school trip, I actually think the way immersive experiences happen, I think that might change in the future. Because if I know it doesn't account for the fact that, you know, you would like to, you know, get up close to animals at Chester Zoo or go and visit the British Museum in London, itself. I think virtually, I thought that was a really good way of it taking place, as opposed to nothing at all. And I think really, just to sort of summarise my presentation, actually, we found a new way to educate our pupils that I think on the whole has worked really well. Whilst there's no substitutes to a teacher in front of a class, teachers have shown in the UK that we can change the way we educate our children. Yes, there may have been teething problems initially, but we did it, and the teaching profession should be proud of this. Our children were educated, they have learned, and okay, there may well be gaps in their knowledge, but that's for us to sort out when they return to us in September. We have all, teacher and pupils alike, adjusted to the new norm of teaching and learning. And so what would be interesting for me is to sort of what happens next. You know, as educators, we have learned lots and lots of new skills, and for that to stop and not happen ever again, then I think that would be a waste. I don't know if there's a sort of halfway house where some things need to still carry on remotely. I'm not sure, but I think on the whole, my last slide, never give up and never stop learning. And that's to all the students who've been locked down and not been in education for 5 months. And I would say that for the staff as well, really. I think we've learned an awful lot over the past 5 months. And that's me. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I hope it was useful.
Awesome, Emma. Thank you so much. It was great. Just a couple of points that really resonated with me as you were going through is you were saying that with some of these remote classes, that actually found some of the students preferred it as a way of learning, and they've actually kind of been put on the spot in the classroom. Do you think that lends itself to a kind of more of an independent way of structuring the individual's kind of learning patterns? And you're saying, you know, not everybody wants to go to class at 8:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
Maybe actually 11 through to 3 o'clock intensely might be a better way of doing it. Was it quite an obvious, sign from those that might not be doing so great in a classroom environment that all of a sudden they've taken a bit more responsibility for their own learning?
I think so. I think when you think about the students that I thought might have struggled, when I've contacted home and I've either spoken to the student or I've spoken to the parent, they have said, you know, Mrs. Platt, I've been really surprised that he's actually got out of bed before 10 o'clock. and he's reading A Christmas Carol on his own, and I've not had to tell him to do that, and he's met the deadline for you. And I think that a lot of our students did engage, and I think maybe one or two of them did prefer the sort of independent way of an independent approach of learning, and not having to say to his neighbour next door, oh, be quiet, you're disrupting me, I can't concentrate, I can't think. Actually, being in your own clothes, in your comfies, in your slippers, you know, and that way, when you're not judged on what you're wearing, what you're saying, the pressure of having to perform, I think that really did suit a lot of students, I think.
It's funny as well, we have a lot of experience and exposure to Chinese students, and how actually, you know, their norm is sitting in classrooms full of 40, 50, 60 odd people, and you know, it's quite crammed into a space, and there is a lot of pressure for an individual to just know an answer and get up and perform in front of everybody. And they naturally tend to be a bit more of a private sort of individual when they're learning, and a lot of the remote patterns that were used in China actually helped a lot of people, because they didn't have to deal, I know it sounds awful, like, but they didn't have to deal with the human interaction. Whereas I think that people like myself, I need that to kind of get engaged. So it's a real balance between having your own space and working well in that space, and then not having the human interaction to keep it kind of moving.
Exactly, yeah.
Fantastic. Emma, thank you so much. We now move on to Chetna. If you would like to share your screen and jump in.
Sure. Just give me 1 second, and I hope I'll be able to share my screen.
And there we go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so let me introduce myself. I'm Chetna Sabharwal, and I'm a Director, Academic and International Relations from JCJ International School, Ludhiana, Punjab, India. So I'll say Sat Sri Akal to all of you. It is a kind of a salutation which we use in Punjab. I'm also a co-founder of Skills Reform Private Limited and founder of Basekra, which is a charitable society which we have been running from last 5 years now, where we work with the students. And I have also been appointed as Global Juror of Sustainable Development Goal. I totally endorse that, because I believe that if whatever we can give to our children is something, is that we give them some better natural environment and maybe some good values also. So that is what I represent. And I'm an NCRT certified counselor and internationally certified life coach. So NCRT, for those who don't know from other parts of the world, which is a national body which certifies the counselors which work in the psychology, and basically I work as an educational psychologist also. With masters in psychology, I also work as a math enthusiast. So that is what I love to do, to eliminate math phobia around whosoever comes around me, whether a child of a 2.5 years or maybe an adult. So that is what I love to do. Now coming to the topic which we are, so let me just introduce my school to all of you. So this is a school where, if you could see one of my students doing save water activity, and some of them, so we have a beautiful garden there where they're doing natural gardening, and they actually see the vegetables, which would be missing right now when we are doing this online learning. So with this mission of our school, prepare students for success in the 21st century by engaging them in rigorous and relevant learning. My philosophy of the school is nurturing learners and leaders with heart. So it was founded in 2016 when one of the eminent educationists, who is our chairman, joined us, and he gave us this idea that why not to start a school which has a very different curriculum, which has a very different approach to the students, because when the students are somewhere, we found that the basic values were missing amongst the students, the one which we as adult or we got from our parents, or because of the interventions of technology, or maybe working parents. So they were not able to get the kind of environment which they used to get in the joint families. So that's why we started this school, and this school is currently running till grade 5. And one thing which I would like to emphasize here is the inclusive curriculum. So anyone, we don't reject any student here. So any student who's coming to us, irrespective of whatever disabilities or maybe some kind of a learning disability they have, they are most welcome here. And it's a kind of a mainstream school where we run that. So that is what. Now, when we talk about going global, can all online learning be taken online? As Emma said, I think she has said a lot of good points that what happened when this pandemic arose and how all of us have reacted. So I would just like all my participants, if you have been able to cope up with this online, so you could just send me a reaction, if possible, of a thumbs up. If I could see some thumbs up on, so that I know that those who are attending here are actually engrossed in our presentations or our sessions. Yeah, that's good. I can see Ritu doing that. May I have some more thumbs up here? Because one thing which we have to understand is the way which we all educators have evolved, the principals, the heads, the management, everyone who has worked around it since March 2020. So some of the things which I can talk about my school or areas in India is socio-economic challenges, because we don't come with the kind of devices. The internet access is very poor in some of the areas. So that was the major challenge for some of the parents to do that. Then age group. So if you're talking about the group of adolescent, there were different situations there, but majorly since we deal with the students who are from pre-K to 5-year, grade 5. So the major challenge was to make them sit on screen. And this is where the challenge came for us. Then comes to the parents' barrier, where the parents were not able to understand that how we have to go. So we were not talking about Google Meets, we were not talking about Microsoft Teams. We were just trying to get in touch with the parents, maybe through WhatsApp, to bring them online that, okay, yes, this has some meaning, there has to be some contact with the school. So these were the initial challenges. And I think in India, most of the schools in primary level will be facing the same thing, because there were some directives from the government also that you cannot run online classes because of the on-screen time, which was a problem. So challenges of physical proximities were not there, but yes, the challenges of bringing them online were too many for us. But luckily what we could do is we could deal with that. And kudos to my team who is also attending here. So that's what the how. Then we come to the, So the how is the challenges and opportunities. So every challenge brings an opportunity. So when we were talking about, so if my teachers were, some of the teachers who were not very happy to come online, they were not very comfortable with online learning or online teaching, they suddenly have to gear themselves and they have to start learning themselves first. That was the first opportunity for teachers. Now coming to challenges, basic challenges which were faced with as I said, the toddler's attention span. Even making a child sit for 30 minutes or 40 minutes was the major challenge for us, and it is still here. So I won't say that we have been able to, because the parents have to, depending on their mood, you have to see that. So that was a major thing. Then we also have some of the first generation learners in technology. So some of the parents are not very comfortable in using even mobiles or maybe the laptop. So that was also the problem there. Then comes the parents' apprehension, because when there is a lesson plan to be prepared, some kind of a arrangement has to be done for maybe art class or science class or maybe the normal mathematics class. The parents have to help the child, but they were not able to do it because of their own lack of knowledge, or maybe their apprehensions or fears that how would we feel as educators when we are presenting them. Then comes the resource availability. A major challenge for all over India was this only, that what are the resources available? If I'm teaching certain concepts, so we have to rethink and think again that what could be the major minimum resources available when we are teaching them, we are preparing the lesson plans for them so that they are able to learn and the parents don't feel the pressure of getting the things into the classroom. Then degree of parents' involvement. Definitely it was a major challenge for, I think, all of us who are presenting today, because they have to, the parents, the partnership changed completely. That when the teachers in the physical proximity or in the school, in the campus, the teachers were doing most of the work. Whereas what happened here is in online teaching is that parents have to be equally involved. So if a child who is 3-year-old or 4-year-old is attending a class for two hours or so, the parent has to be involved into that. So after handling with these challenges, we actually customized for every parent according to that. And most of the classes were taken care of. Then comes the opportunities. So individualized learning plan, because we have a very good ratio of teachers to student is like 8:1 right now. So that could work for us, but I'm not sure it worked for every school in India. So individual learning plans were quickly done because you have a lot of resources available and there is a repository already amongst the teachers, so they can pick up easily that what suits my student and what will work for my learner, so they could do that. The wonderful thing which my teacher team and my principal did was the parents training. So they started with the parent training slowly, bringing them on board, making them comfortable on screen. So that is where it worked well for us. Then regular interaction. So as a director, another director of mine who was there with me, so we were interacting with the parents continuously, because you have to win the confidence of the parents that, okay, yes, we are there with you, and you cannot alone handle the students at home for, let's say, 24 hours. The flexibility in the classes were given to them. So if the parents are working in the morning, so some classes were kept also in the evening, and that is how it worked for us. So luckily we have been able to keep that touch with the parents also. So it's kind of an evolving partnership which is happening right now for all of us, including parents, including the management, including the teachers also, for that matter. Now next, when we are talking about what online learning will bring to us. So that is first thing I'll take 3 parameters here. One is the learner. So when we talk about the learners, so learners are actually becoming, they're taking ownership of their learning. So when there's a class, so I ask the parents during the interaction that how even a 5-year-old child is preparing. So they say they are excited about it because they would be able to see their teachers and they would be able to meet their friends maybe online. And that's where the interaction. So there were parties which were being done for them. There was some kind of a non-academic time which was given to them so that they can actually learn from each other. They know their partners, they know their classmates. That is what we did. So the agency ownership happened completely there. The next thing which we planned is completely very different from most of the schools which were doing was skill-based learning. So here, I would like to emphasize that I just give this freedom to the parents that if they actually have whatever skills they have, they can actually bring them on board for the students and they can learn together. So some things, maybe the students have done the basic cutting and making recipes, which are, non-cooking, non-gas recipes or non-light this thing. So their fine motor skills and every development was happening slowly, but yes, they were never in untouched this thing. So that's what happened with the learners. So they become more responsible. So, and some of them were so cute and they were so responsible that they would always come in the uniform whenever there is an online class. So that is the best thing, which a student becomes responsible that, okay, I have to get up at this time and then I can do this. Next comes to the teachers. When we talk about teachers, teachers have always been active facilitator for everything for that matter, whether they are online or whether they are offline also. So, but they become very active facilitators in the sense that they were preparing the lesson plans very differently, very immersive lesson plans when I say it. So the whole planning changed for them because they have to see that whether they are able to get the engagement of all the students during those 40 minutes of the class. So that's where, and then some of the lessons were prepared so that they could do it in their garden. That is what. So the complete lesson planning changed from the physical classes to the online classes. So that was the best thing because they started researching. They actually worked well on their research. And if suppose the students are saying that we don't have a Wi-Fi or we are not getting, I don't have a phone for getting my classes done. So they've actually sent them the worksheet on WhatsApp. And that's how the classes have been going on. So no student was left behind. That was the best thing which happened to my school in that sense. Of course, parents have always been active partners for us. So they have been involved in most of the activities, whether it's for celebrating the festivals. It has been happening right now also. So we did one show called Show Your Skills where 20 students at a time were participating and they presented. So some of them were learning origami, some of them learned poetry, some of them did some kind of a research poem. So that is what they were doing. So it was basically an unwinding time for the teachers and the parents and the students also, so that they can come online on Saturdays, maybe thus on the weekend, so that they can have some kind of unwinding time for themselves. And we know more about the students if suppose we are not being able to come online. Then comes immersive learning. Of course, this can never be unbeaten because learners definitely, when I'm not able to, as a teacher, if I'm not able to tell my student that, okay, how the hug works, okay, the physical proximity. So if I'm taking them in immersive learning, so the touch, the human connect is missing here. That is where the limitations comes with the online learning. So holistic development, when we are talking about, so it is not happening. It's kind of a 360-degree development when you come to social emotional aspects of the learning, so that won't happen. And of course, when we are talking about collaborative learning, so there would be less of interaction within the students and maybe with the teachers also, where the students feel sometimes, especially those students who might not be able to face the camera. That is where the challenge would come from when we talk about immersive learning. In immersive learning, when the teacher is around, she can talk about it, she can gear up the students, she can motivate the students, but somewhere in online learning that might not happen, because, and sometimes the students will not come out of their introversion. For teachers, it was guided learning, definitely, because years from the years we are having the lesson plans ready, everything was there, year after year they are teaching the same thing. So it was easy when you talk about immersive learning. But yes, if the school is progressive, they will definitely work on what are the new challenges. So my teachers would have always worked on the sustainable development goals, where we did, even with a 2 or 3-year-old child, we were doing some kind of an activities which were missing right now. So they have to do individually rather than doing as a teamwork. That is what. And of course, with the immersive learning, parents have limited partnership, in the sense now what change I see in my parents is they become more alert, because they don't know what question will come from the child when they are learning, maybe it's about sciences or about mathematics. So they are preparing more about these things, that, okay, I don't know what my child will ask. So they even contact the teachers also for this particular thing, that, okay, how should I teach this particular topic to my student? So that's where it becomes very interesting thing. So I think somewhere what we plan is this particular thing, the way forward. So I'm looking forward, which might not happen soon. So if the school reopens in September or later, so we are planning to use blended learning model. So which is learning and relearning of running a school, because the whole concept of running a school right now in India will change, because the student teacher ratio has to be maintained. That is one thing. Of course, there will be pedagogical challenges, because I'm just talking about my school here, but in India currently there are 350 million children who are out of school. When I say out of school, they are enrolled in a school, but there may not be, the learning may be happening or may not be happening, especially for the primary years. And I feel as a psychologist that these are the foundation years for the students, where they need to have the strong foundation, the developmental milestones have to be completed, which is a big challenge, that how those teachers will be able to do that. Then learners mindset and training, which has to be done, because you cannot tell a 4-year, 5-year or 7-year-old child not to touch each other, not to shake hands with each other. So teachers are going to have tough time with that. And that's where the challenge for the school also comes. Then parents partnership, of course, the parent fear will be there. They are still they are yet to come out of the fear, because if the child is going to the school, if the school is not taking care of everything, so they might bring the infections at home. So that's where the fear mindset will take time to go. But then we are hopeful that slowly this will happen, and maybe it's a new thing, a new normal for us, where we are thinking, but that will happen definitely. Then we come to school. If suppose school reopens in the next session, which is March 21 for us, definitely. So blended learning with virtual school. So what I have introduced in our school is something which is called skill-based curriculum, where we are not letting the child, if suppose they still not come to the school, so they will be having the option of learning online, where we have a very specific social, emotional, and physical development classes. So that is what we are planning to do, and their hands-on skills and their experiential learning will happen. So teachers are going to record their videos, which are there available to them, so that they can, as and when they want to see, so they can see it. Parents can come back and forth to those, they can have their discussions, and complete backend team will be there, so which can help them to take forward. So the point here is that I may not be able to give my students the grade, the SIG access, but yes, there won't be any apprehension or any kind of a deterrent for their development in terms of whatever social, emotional, physical development we are talking about during these school years. So that is what's definitely digital interventions. I have seen a lot of people on, sharing their virtual classes online. But I'm surprised that if a child is not able to touch the fish or touch animal, the virtual will not work that way. So it has to be. I'm not saying that you have to put your hand in the mouth of a crocodile, but yes, that has to be. I mean, that true feeling or that touch or that kind of a tactile learners, they will definitely would like to do that. So that is where challenges. And of course, upskilling of teachers, the best thing which has happened during this pandemic is this, that those teachers who were a little apprehensive about learning more, they were very happy with whatever they were able to do for the last 10 years in the curriculum. They are ready to learn, they're ready to change. And that is what happens when, I mean, maybe that's what I say, that every challenge brings opportunity. So that is what has happened to our school in India. So that is what from my side, and I would be happy to take questions later. So thank you so much, Tom, and Global Alliance team. I'm a member of this alliance, so definitely I'm happy to learn a lot of things from other speakers as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chetna. That was really good. Just a couple of things from myself before we move on. Again, most of my international education experience is either in UK, but predominantly in China. And they have large population and provinces. Provincially, you'll have like super modern cities that are well ahead of the game technology-wise, and then you'll have towns and townships that are theoretically and quite practically 30, 40, 50 years behind the rest of the country. So a lot of the Chinese population, especially the parents, they've grown up in a post-PC world. So a lot of adults in China, they won't be comfortable actually using a PC themselves. And a lot of them will be kind of more mobile based. And so their children have been teaching the parents how to use the technology to actually work the classes. How is that set up in India? Is there a similar sort of situation where you'll have, like, because I know you mentioned it, where you'll have some people who are super comfortable using the tech and have access to Wi-Fi and the rest of it, and then some families that it might be quite a new thing. How is all that played out?
Yeah, so luckily in our area, there's not a problem. I mean, but yes, the coming to the learning devices to use it for the students learning. I mean, everybody is happy using Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But when it comes to Zoom and Google Meetings and Microsoft Teams, it requires some kind of a basic skills for them. So yes, definitely there is a challenge. But major work which we are also doing with my charitable societies to reach out to those people, those students who are not able to have any access to education. So we are thinking of community radios. That is what we are planning to do for some, so that we can, as a school, and I would invite everybody from here that if you could share some lessons and something that can be given to them. So that is where, because some of the areas we do not have the internet access also. Forget about the devices. Even internet access is not that easy for them. And as I said, because India being the youngest population right now, so 350 million children we are talking about. So that would be a challenge, but I think the government is working well. They are coming up with, because as I said, I am connected with the national body. So we do have online learning platforms. The only thing is the platforms are there, but how to reach to the students when internet access is not there. So let's be hopeful for that. And I hope maybe we'll be able to find some solution. Yeah.
And what about, and you mentioned around the kind of parent engagement. Have you found that has been an essential part of the equation, that the parents really need to be an active member in their learning? Or have you found that, as long as the child understands how to access it, they've kind of got around it?
Yeah, so it will see. I mean, a 3-year-old child will not know about that, how to operate this, except that they can do the selfie thing. Of course, I have seen a lot of students doing that. But when it comes to using the thing, so the point is that they're sitting with this child for 3 hours or maybe so. So we actually reduce the screen time. So we are giving them a break of, let's say, after 25 minutes. So that's how you have to customize. And for parents, yes, we have worked with them. So even I took these sessions for the parents also, that how you have to deal. So social emotional learning became one of the essential component for us during this pandemic, though it was already there. But then when it comes to handling the child at home for 24/7, and when you have your own work as well. I mean, imagine though both the parents working and you have your office work to be done, and then you have a class to be attended here. So the work pressure is for them also. So we worked on the social emotional learning part of the parents as well and the students also. And that worked well for us. So the parents are on board now, so they participate. So the thing is that we have to break those barriers. That is very, very important, that the parents feel that they can access the teacher. They can, we have to become accessible to them rather than having that, okay, you don't know this thing. So that is how it worked well. So, and parents are becoming more alert. And some of the parents have actually, not talking about my school, but some of the parents have actually thinking of homeschooling their children so for next 3 years or so. Because now they have become alert. They know that, okay, this teaching we can also do. So that is there where they're saving, sending them to the school. So that is something which this trend will pick up a lot in India.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We will now move on to Tatiana. So I will, again, guys, thank you so much for adding your questions to the chat. Please feel free to continue to do so. We are taking note and we'll come back to those at the end. So Tatiana, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Can you confirm that you see it?
Yep. I've got your screen. I can see a presentation now.
Okay. So my name is Tatiana Popa. I'm an English teacher at Heritage International School in Chisinau in Moldova. Moldova is a small country in Eastern Europe. Not many people know where it is, but we're very proud of our country, you know. My school is not too old. It is only 3 years old, but I think in this lockdown we have certainly come of age and have gained so much experience while learning and while experiencing the distance learning. I'm also the head of global education, and I used to involve students in all kind of international collaboration and all kind of projects. So there is a huge debate on a global scale about online learning. What is online learning? What is blended learning? What is hybrid learning, etc. So because educators want to learn and want to feel more equipped for the coming semester, and we actually do not know how it will take place, how long we will be in schools, or how it will turn. First of all, I would like to mention about the advantages of online learning. And while doing the research, I found lots of information online on this, and I found even some things mentioned for the pandemic time. So first of all, it is the flexible schedule that we have, being anywhere, anytime. I think these advantages actually refer more to university students and to having the online courses. I'm a huge fan of online courses from anywhere in the world, so I know what they are mentioning here. So the opportunity to study the lecture again, if it is recorded, so this saves students who don't understand from the first time and they need to watch repeatedly in order to get it. Then it can be joined from anywhere. The only thing you need is to have internet connection and advice. Also, it could be done after work if it is about the university students, if they have a job. It could include so many topics, and because it is digital, we don't use so much paper. Also, it has no necessity for commuting because everybody studies from their homes, from the comfort of their sofas. Also, the courses might be cheaper, so no much expense on the studies. And for some people, for some students, this is proved to be a more effective way of learning. Well, this could be debated still, but still, it depends on the type of the learner. It can have an individual learning pace if it is a course. It has its own convenience, and for the stay-at-home or working from home parents, it is perfect. Also, it helps us adapt to the technological society in the 21st century. And it is available in the time of pandemics, which is what we experienced this spring. And it has a positive environmental impact. As we mentioned just before we start, Planet F might say thank you for not traveling that much and not harming the environment that much. What are the disadvantages of online learning? So first of all, it requires discipline. You need to have a timetable and to be organized in order to keep with the deadlines. You need less individual, you have access, what I say, to less individual support from the teachers. Some people may not have access to a computer, to any device to get in. Some really good time management skills are needed, and the people with disabilities, I have seen some comments in the chat, these type of learners would definitely struggle and would need assistance. And it is considered that the dropout rates might be much higher, because not all students feel motivated to get engaged in the online environment. And there are, of course, fewer interaction with other students, and maybe there are forums or chats, but it's not as the real one. Also, there are fewer networking possibilities, for real, it is referred to. Virtual networking happens a lot in the online environment. And then there might be lots of technology issues, especially for the younger learners, which some educators already mentioned. They have used so many tools to get online, to teach the preschoolers, for example, which I am really impressed. And at my own school, I think our primary teachers have done a brilliant job. Of course, they had, as it was already mentioned, it was necessary to train the parents first, to explain them how to use the technology, how to do things, and after that, I think the children get it easier than the adults. Parents help them get online, and our educators have done a good job, I think. Then there might be hard to get financial support for the online courses. For example, no scholarships. The motivation to learn might suffer. So for those learners who need a personal engagement or direct contact with the teacher, this would not be enough. They might drop out from courses or from lessons. And the overall acceptance of online courses may be much lower than the usual ones. Well, some courses might not be reliable, might be all kind of scams. And not all the fields of studies are available for online courses. But if we refer to the distance learning that happened this spring all around the world and at Heritage International School as well, I just want to highlight some of them. So if we speak about the advantages, of course, the flexibility of being able to learn from everywhere. Well, not that we were not in our own homes in a lockdown, of course. I feel pity for the people who have no garden and they have lived in their apartments and stayed for months without going outside. I think for the mental health of children, this is a huge detriment. Of course, the cost savings, not being people not needing to spend lots of money for example, students to pay for the food in the school or maybe for the clothes and so on. Of course, the location independence, only internet needed, no commuting to school and back. The adaptation to our technological society, I think both parents and educators and students learned a lot in this lockdown. And I have felt a global solidarity in this. All the apps that were available for educators before have offered our educators to use the technologies for free during the lockdown, and this was impressive. Let this be Flipgrid, Kahoot, and so on. So all the premium packs were now available for free. Also, I think lots of digital skills have been developed both for parents and teachers and students. So I had the honor to host the primary school council in my school. So we had two student councils for primary and secondary, and it took place virtually, even in the lockdown, once a week. So several times I had the possibility to interact with those brilliant children And you know what they told me? I asked them what they liked about the online learning, distance learning. And they said they have learned really good digital tools, how to use them, how to apply them. And they were already planning how to create blogs, how to use this, how to use that. Of course, what they missed the most was interaction, real interaction. And of course, for me personally, and I'm sure for other educators as well, distance learning offered more opportunities for online collaboration projects worldwide. Because we had access to internet, we were doing all our activities online, so it offered more space for us to do this. And of course, there were some disadvantages, real peer interaction, which my students mentioned. And I think the educators also felt isolated, not being able to share experience, not being able to drink a cup of tea in the staff room, and so on. So we are humans, and you know, this connectivity makes us feel even more human. And of course, self-discipline and time management. I had some situations when the parents had to wake up the children to get online in front of the computer. Well, with that at home, they feel lazier, and some of them cannot concentrate as well as they are in the classroom. We all know that the first lesson are still very sleepy, but imagine them being at home in front of a computer. And of course, the lack of practice-based learning. For example, if we speak about chemistry lessons, all kind of experiments, all the things that they need to touch and do it together. And of course, the reliance on technology, for some, this might have been a problem, or internet connectivity. I had, as a teacher, some situations when the electricity got interrupted. So luckily, I have had for Google Classroom scheduled all my posts with information, and I only took my phone and let them go on the stream. So I just wrote a message and announced that we are doing today asynchronous learning because the teacher has no electricity, and it saved me. So if you have good planning, this helps a lot. So real life situation. And if we mention in deep, here I have some examples of highlighting some of the advantages that I mentioned. So the flexibility offered me a platform to do some really interesting type of lessons online. In the first image, you see one of my students with guitar playing in front of the camera for all the group. We have used as a school on the Google tool. So we met full 45 minutes for every lesson as in school. We have a 10-minute break, and we just felt as natural as in a classroom. So my student was at home, he was having his guitar. We were studying the music genres on islands. And of course, he was able to show his talent in front of the class. Another example was our music teacher, Nina. She used some socks to make musical puppets to play and sing in front of the students. And my daughter was at home, and she also designed one of hers. And she was very happy and taught even her younger sister how to make the puppets. So they really had fun. And you can see in the last picture also the music teacher. She taught students how to create a rainbow in glasses with colors, and then to play music with a spoon and the glasses to create music. So we were trying to adapt our activities so that they feel comfortable in their homes and they don't feel they're far from the teacher and their classmates. And of course, I'll talk later about the digital tools they used and what they were able to create as students and how their digital skills developed. But you can see that we tackled the SDGs, the problems around the world, the plastic pollution, and my students were just brilliant at using the technologies and showing a really positive and good example and how concerned they are of the environment and the world. The location independence also proved really good. And for example, in the first set of images, you can see a post of mine on Twitter. I was so impressed. We had an English lesson where we discussed pets, how to take care of them, and to describe, use adjectives and so on to describe them. And most of them had pets at home, just brought their animals in front of the camera. It was a really interesting lesson. They were really impressed of the possibility to show this the animal to everyone. And the next example is also my students making presentations and taking us virtually to various zoos and aquariums around the world. Well, I can tell you that these digital natives just impressed me of how resourceful they are. We have been to the London Zoo, we have visited the Jurassic Park, we have been all around the world. And if we speak about the digital skills learned, I think both teachers and students have learned enormously. And I have had discussions with my students' parents, and they are so impressed of how much they learned together with their children. Because, you know, overnight, the parents had finally the possibility to assist the lesson, to see what we are doing in classes. I don't know what happens in your countries, but in Moldova, a parent cannot just simply get into the classroom and observe a lesson. But now, I was, for example, and all other educators, I'm sure, aware that a parent, at least one, might be watching. Well, they're aware, grandmothers, grandfathers as well. So the digital skills that they learned definitely will help them for a future, for being university students, and just for the 21st century life. You have the possibility to see here in the images how they created Google Slides presentations, speaking about natural disasters around the world, or in the holiday show unit discussing places and creating a presentation about the famous places in Italy. If we speak about the new digital skills learned, I think all the educators that are present from Moldova and Romania can easily say that we have created a platform called Education Online, and it has thousands of video lessons created by hundreds of educators in our country, and they also have interactive activities for each lesson. And if we will need them in the autumn for the next semester, of course, we will make use of all of them. And it was an enormous work, and it saved so many educators in the country whose students did not have the possibility to have live synchronous access to lessons. So, of course, more opportunities for online collaboration projects. In this, in the first image, you can see, I'm sure the people from Britain will recognize this is the sign of peace and solidarity for the messages young people in Wales collect on the 18th of May every year, and this tradition has been kept for 98 years. So I involved my students in this. They had just to create this triangle sign and to write some messages of solidarity. And then during the same week, this youth organization is called URT in Wales. And then we got in contact with another youth organization for Wales, and we discussed about Welsh traditions, customs, nature, and the Welsh language as well. And for the last day, we call it International Day in my school because we are an international school. So my class chose Japan because they like the animes and they like the Japanese traditions. So I found on Google, on Skype Classroom, an educator from Tokyo and asked him to get in touch so that we could discuss with his students. And you can see here on the last day we had a video conference, and a flow of questions and answers followed from Moldova to Japan and back. It was an amazing experience for my students, and they really felt, well, I love Japan. Now I can find out from the authentic source. And the last image, you can see me interacting with some educators from North Carolina. It is a project between Moldova and North Carolina that is already for more than 20 years. And for several years, we have educational collaboration. So I involved my 7th grade in collaboration with the school in Elizabeth City. And here we were having a video conference on Facebook with the State Secretary of North Carolina and some of the educators from Moldova, and sharing experience and how the project worked. And this will continue, of course. The teacher on the bottom, called Consuelo Johnson, she already joined my school. She came to Moldova to teach math as a result of our collaboration. And while the internet and the 21st century connectivity allowed us to do this. So if we speak about the next year, Heritage School is going to start the year in a very hopeful way. And hope starts for us with a mural. And this is what our director, Rob Ford, said, that we need to provide hope, certainty, leadership and routines, and a safe, inspiring environment for the trust and confidence of everyone in our learning communities. And this mural was painted by a young artist whose mother teaches in our school. And this small building is called the Oak Center. It is the center of our all the students, where they study, interact, and so on. So it is a good message of hope for the coming year, and hopefully we return fully to school. But if we speak about returning fully, I can only tell that our Ministry of Education offered 7 scenarios for returning to school in the autumn. So the first scenario would be a full return with 100% physical presence of students. The second one, which they offered, was to have 2 shifts with 30 minutes lessons, the lessons shorter, so that all students can come to school during the same day. The third one would be a blended learning, 1 day online and 1 day offline for half of the students, and then the hybrid learning with 50% of students in school and 50 at home. And then some alternating learning of 1 week in school, 1 week at home, and then changing, or full distance learning, and a mixture. The 7th one would be a mixture of several of the other scenarios. So my school decided that we would take the first one, fully in school for all students. But even so, we have discussed these days that we would probably make an induction period for our students, so that they don't come all 400 at the same time. Probably we will invite half of them, and then the next day, and so on. We are still discussing whether this induction period would be 1 week or 2, but we need to know all of them safely returned to school. And of course, we will have hybrid learning too. So for those students who are afraid, or whose parents are afraid to send their children to school, or from any health issues, who want to study from home, we will also have our cameras connected so that we can offer education to those who stay at home as well. This is what we plan for the next academic year. So we are going to use, again, Google Classroom, Google Meet, and all the other tools that Google has. And in this case, I can say that Moldova, we have been visionary, because Moldova in the summer, after the lockdown, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Google Inc., so that every school in our country can have a Google Suite for education for their school. And we need to get students and parents aware and acquainted with the new normal, with all the rules if they want to come back to school. We need to encourage them, we need to explain, and we need to request all that's needed so that everyone stays safe. And of course, as I mentioned, we're going to use blended and hybrid learning. Well, blended learning is that we, after the lockdown, learning so many web tools, it is a pity not to use those tools during the lessons, even if they are face-to-face, to give them exposure and first of all, to save paper and to protect the planet. Well, the tools will be more integrated in the lessons, and after the digitalized lockdown, as I call it, we are all very confident in using all the web tools, I think. And we had a big discussion about summative assessments. So we are planning to have them only in school, and if a child is completely on the DLP, only in that case they might take the assessment online. So here you can see an example of how we discussed this week, how we planned of getting back to school. We discussed how to have a safe return for all our students. We planned what are the gates, the entrances, how they would go to their classrooms, with all the steps needed so that they feel safe, so that their parents do not worry, so that we do not worry about getting in the school all together in hundreds. And if we speak about global collaboration, I already have a huge list of activities planned for my brilliant students. So if we speak about the global goals, the SDGs, as I mentioned before the beginning of this conference, Moldova has never had such heat or winter without snow as this year. So 2020 is a totally different year. So of course, the Climate Action Project is one of the projects that every student needs to get involved in order to be able to...
Da, știu. E luat? Alusurdeanu, acolo, amândouă.
Sorry guys, if we can try and keep ourselves muted, that would be awesome.
So we need to make our students global citizens that are aware and that love their planet Earth. Another example would be a project, Single Voices, Global Choices. It is also a global project. Any educator around the world can join it. It will highlight and respect the UN International Days, some of them. So it will be a full year of an interactive calendar and activities for the students to get in and to get connections and friends from all over the globe. Another good example is the beluga.org. It is a wonderful platform where educators at any subject can choose lesson plans, and they all contain videos and materials and all kinds of resources to give them an immersive and good exposure to all that's happening around the world. Lots of subjects and topics. I invite you all to explore them. Of course, many of them are focused on the SDGs as well. And another good resource for immersive experience is the Lifta.ed from the UK. It is a wonderful platform that allows students to get into an immersive environment in the 3D, so that they learn about all kinds of topics, starting from immigration to theater and many other stories from around the world. And well, these platforms have free access. Lifta, for example, is 1 month free. You at least have, as educators, the possibility to explore and see what it offers. Beluga has the free pack as well. So I'm happy to get in them and to expose my students to such interesting possibilities, to get them connected to students and to do wonderful things. And of course, Global School Alliance will offer all of us some global projects where we can involve all our students and to make them feel that they are citizens of the world and they are not limited to their political borders. So this was my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you found some useful information.
Tatiana, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
It's, you know, some of those other platforms that you've shared there, through Lifta, I was having a look at before, they have done some really cool work with trying to understand what the next sort of hybrid approach could be. And I think that one thing I am interested in as I'm listening to you guys and your presentations is, you know, a lot of the online teaching and learning seems to be quite knowledge or information focused. And do we think, and I'm going to aim this at you, but I'll open up later, but do you think that is the most important part about education? Do you think it is more about the absorption of knowledge, or is there an interpersonal part to it which is equally as valuable, more valuable, less valuable? What are your thoughts?
I think as educators, we always try to make our students learn something, but I think the human interaction connection, getting them into these projects is so important because they create connections with students from other schools and countries. They make friends and they can interact after the project. If you speak about the virtual environment, I'm not mentioning exchanges for real, but I have involved my students in twinning projects, in all kinds of international projects for many years. And I think all the students remember these projects more than the usual lessons. Yeah. So if I get bored of a simple lesson, then definitely our students, for digital natives, and they have so much energy and they are so curious. Of course, they love learning and discovering things.
So how did that, and I'll keep this brief because we do need to move on to Angelica now, but how did the call between the Japanese kids and your class go? Did you find that an easy one to navigate? How did that work?
The Japanese meeting?
Yes.
Oh, I can tell you they were so impressed. I have students in my class who have studied Korean language, others studied Japanese, so they are fond of animes. They were speaking a language which I could not understand because they were naming titles of these cartoons and so on, and I was just listening because I have never watched them. Yeah. We, the educators, there were 2 educators from Tokyo, and it was me, so we were just there listening how they were interacting.
You know what, I think that that seems to be the kind of secret sauce. If you can kind of create an environment where they do all the work and you just kind of guide them, and that's the best.
This is the easiest thing for teaching online. I have felt only with facilitator. I was only showing them the way. Guys, I was posting the first slide in the presentation. The title is this, you do this and this and this. And what I did and worked really brilliantly in this lockdown is assigning them to work in groups. This way they felt more connected and not feeling, well, I am at home, you're at home. So they were creating presentations or any other products in groups, and it made them feel more connected and more responsible for what they had to do. So let us make our product better than that other group. Let us compete. Let us create this classroom environment.
Love a good competition. Again, Tatiana, thank you so much. And we are going to hand over to you to close us out.
So hello from me.
Hello.
To upload my presentation. Is it okay? Can you see it now?
I can see your presentation. Your volume's a little bit on the low side. Low side. That might just be for me.
Is it okay now? Is it okay now?
It's clear.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I saw some shaking head. That's much better now. I've got you.
Okay. Is it clearly?
I've got you.
So, thank you very much for inviting me to this Global School Alliance Conference. I am Angeliki Kugirouki, and I come from Alexandroupolis, a city of 70,000 inhabitants located in northeast Greece. I did my first studies at the University of Ioannina, the pedagogical department, and these studies gave me the key to the primary schools. After some years, I managed to make my dream come true and studied also history at the Democritus University of Thrace, and later on, as a lifelong learner, I kept on with my master on visual culture from Trakya University in Edirne, Turkey. All this period, I'm teaching in primary schools, mainly at 5th and 6th graders. The last 16 years of my career, I'm teaching in first experimental primary school in my home city, where I started when I was at the age of 6. I am an enthusiastic e-twinner, registered in e-twinning since 2012 and awarded several times with national and European awards. I'm an e-twinning ambassador, And I ran a lot of on-site and online seminars and webinars. I worked for 2 years as a facilitator for the Creative Classroom featured e-twinning group before Irene Pateraki, who created this active group, proposed me to moderate it since this January and organize a series of activities for more than 16,000 members. So if you are an e-twinner, do be a member of the Creative Classroom active group. So attending a lot of interesting MOOCs in EUN and the School Education Gateway inspired me to apply and be a member also of the Europeana DSI for users group for 2 years, plan a lot of use a lot of digital material related to cultural heritage and plan lesson plans which were awarded twice. This European orientation of mine inspired me to develop also Erasmus projects and be a coordinator of these projects at my school. As I mentioned, I teach in first experimental primary school, as you can see here in the map, which is located in northeast Greece, close to the Greek and the Turkish borders. This school had this year 246 pupils. My school is connected to the Department of Pedagogical Studies of Demokritos University of Thrace in Greece. That means that students from the local university come and watch us teaching online. Later on, they plan their teaching at our classes and they inspire us, all the school staff, with their fresh and innovative ideas. My school is an awarded e-twinning school since 2018. That means we got the twinning school label twice because the school fulfills the criteria that I'm going to mention later on. My school is oriented to innovation and creativity and applies a lot of innovative ideas we have or we happen to hear in conferences like this or in seminars. For example, we did a pilot project of schools self-evaluation, creating teams of teachers, developing lesson plans, and watch other teachers to implement these lesson plans in their classrooms. Kind of difficult for teachers to accept this kind of situation. Another example is the pilot project of mentoring. That means we have every year students from the local university who, apart from their training, come to school, help us with the teaching, plan and apply their own projects while we act as mentors to them. Of course, schools leadership supports any innovative idea we propose and do the best to help us apply it. All teachers at the school are involved each year in various national and international projects, such as e-twinning, Erasmus, Europeana, and this gives us a European orientation and created a unique network with partners and friends from abroad. And I hope we will enlarge it today. We try to implement innovative strategies such as team teaching, CLIL, PBL, blended learning, etc. Whenever it is possible to do it so, creating an inclusive environment for all our students, religious and nation minorities included, promoting students' participation in clubs, competitions, researches. And from the very first time of this unpleasant lockdown period, we encouraged students distance learning during all the COVID school closures. How we did it? I will explain it, focusing on the 5 pillars of the e-twinning school, which are digital and e-safety practice, innovative and creative approaches to pedagogy, promotion of continuous professional development of staff, and promotion of collaborative learning practices with staff and students.
Angelica, sorry to jump in there. Could you share the slide? The PowerPoint presentation doesn't seem to be keeping up with your...
Is it okay now?
So I've still got the first slide, which is your self-introduction. I missed the second one followed what you were saying, but I didn't see. And I believe
just a minute. I don't know what is happening. Can you see it now? Do you see the first slide now?
I can see the first slide with your
and now?
And I've still got just the first slide.
And what about now?
Yeah, just the first slide.
I don't know what is happening.
I'll tell you what, how about I'll take the screen off you and then we will
Okay.
go through for you. Do you want to just stop?
Is it okay now? Is it okay now? Are they changing?
No,
I don't know what is happening.
I guess,
Okay.
Angelica, what you have to do is you have to stop sharing screen and come to share screen again. Can you do that?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
I stopped sharing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped it.
And then start again. Share screen again. I think that will, hopefully it will solve the problem. Move to the next slide.
Yeah, give me a second.
Yes.
I don't know what is happening.
It's okay. I tell you what, if you stop sharing your screen, I will share my screen.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. I'll just keep up with where you are at. So I believe you are on this.
Yeah, I was here. Okay, and you can turn the slides for me, or I can do it as well. Yeah, I can do it.
I believe, no, if you just keep talking and I will try and keep up with you.
Yes, I can do it. As far as I can see, I can do it. But in case it is a problem for me, you can turn the slides. So, as I mentioned, the 5 pillars of the e-twinning school, which are digital practice, safety practice, innovative and creative approaches to pedagogy, promoting continuous professional development of staff, and promoting collaborative learning practices with staff and students. So what we did were in accordance with these pillars, and what we did, can you please go to the next slide? Okay, just as we shift on and started to taught online, it was a new challenge for our experimental school. It was a new mission for the e-twinning school, or a new field of for innovative practices. The next slide, please. So on March 10th, the Greek government announced the school closures for 14 days at the beginning, and then they kept on until the end of May for the primary level. My school's response was immediate. The first attempts to keep students in touch with the educational process were mails to parents and the use of personal blogs. At the same time, the head, with the help of all the staff, tried to identify the communication channels with parents to enroll all the 246 students in the Panhellenic School network, get an account with a username and password for each one of them, and provide all these accounts both to teachers and parents. Meanwhile, teachers started creating technology-based virtual classes using eMe and the eClass, as you can see in these photos, two safe platforms which were provided by the Ministry of Education. On the other hand, parents had to activate their children's accounts, giving the field to teachers to invite them to these virtual classes. 25 teachers created 52 virtual classes, and they invited students as well. I, for example, had created 2 virtual classes in eMe, one for my 6th graders and one for the cinema club that I ran last school year. Of course, a lot of technical problems, a lot of internet issues due to the web traffic forced teachers to use personal blogs as well. 10 personal blogs served us at the same time. When I was facing a technical issue, for example, with the platform of the virtual class, I used to inform parents, and through a Viber team, my students, that material to study and the tasks to carry out were uploaded on my personal blog. A new digital school practice came to stay for all the lockdown period, helping teachers to teach asynchronous at the beginning, and after some weeks also in asynchronous mode using Cisco WebEx. So the new digital practice had the following characteristics: asynchronous 1/3 via the virtual class, synchronous 1/3 via Cisco WebEx offered by the Ministry of Education, not more than 2 hours per day, with respect to students' exposure to screens, and 1/3 educational TV offered by the Ministry of Education. And okay. Our priority using these platforms was the e-safety for students, teachers, and families. My school has a specific e-safety policy, which is based on the Safer Internet for Kids. It has been evaluated by the e-twinning Central Support Service, and it is published in the school's website. As mentioned, students had their own username and password to enter the virtual classes, and they followed also the link of the teacher's synchronous platform in Cisco WebEx. During the synchronous teaching, which was from 12 to 14, students were allowed to open their cameras only at the beginning and at the end of the lesson. Some incidents of parents' publication in social media, photos or short kind of videos, were downloaded immediately after teachers' or heads' intervention. Of course, everything was under specific rules and etiquette that each teacher had established to its own virtual class according to the school's e-safety policy. We respected privacy for students and their parents regarding names, photos, mails, social media. For example, I created the Gmail account to keep on the communication with parents, sending emails almost every day with a BCC. And this Gmail Google Drive helped me with digitized notebooks for personal and collaborative tasks. That means that I created for each one of my 22 students a digital notebook where each one of the students had to write there the tasks that I delivered through the virtual class or the synchronous meeting. And then I had the chance to visit this digitized notebook and make some comments, kind of formative assessment. Next slide. So having all these in our hands, it was time for the school staff to rethink about the curriculum. No, yes, the previous, oh, yes, this is, okay. Good. This is, yes, we had the virtual classes for the synchronous teaching. Yes, we had the safe Cisco platform for the synchronous and the educational TV, but what to teach and how to teach it. At the very first start, the official instructions were only for repetitions. How to do that so as to not replicate online what we normally do in the classroom. We thought that we should do it by engaging students in interesting activities. This was not a strategy that was practical, as not all the students could access synchronous classes reliably, and many had other challenges, such as other siblings or parents needing access to technology. The costs, of course, of broadband internet access exceeding their ability to pay, especially for some kids coming from minority, nor was it efficient. But e-twinning taught us to be flexible and to establish flexible learning routines. The classroom with information delivered through a lecture was no longer the unique center of learning. Virtual classes and the collaborative web tools, as mentioned before, helped us to do it so, as students could use them at their own learning environment, at their own time, and with their own pace. Of course, keeping specific dates so as to be able to collaborate with their fellow classmates in some tasks. We tried also to help students to manage knowledge, how to find, analyze, evaluate, and apply knowledge to meet the demands of 21st century society using skills such as critical thinking, independent learning, the use of relevant information technology, software and data with discipline, as mentioned by the previous speakers, and entrepreneurialism. For example, we provided them with resources to study, tools to be engaged, and practice digital skills, interesting tasks, games, and so on. For example, as I mentioned, I used the Google Docs, which served to me not only for the the tasks that were according to the curriculum, but also, for example, for an experiment, as mentioned Tatiana earlier, for the acid rain, for example, I gave them instructions on how to do it at home and make their observations, write them in this notebook, and as I mentioned, I could visit it and make some comments there, and share these Google Docs during our synchronous meeting to make comments. The asynchronous platforms, AIME and the class, with their tools, helped us to create digital exercises and share them with kids. Students like them a lot. And with our guidance, especially the older ones, for example, these who were at the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, prepared a lot of them and shared them with their classmates using Web 2.0 tools also, and upload them on the virtual classes so as to be visible for the other classmates as well. For example, for the geography lesson, and while examining the European content, my students had to work using a common Google presentation to present the country that we agreed during the synchronous meeting, and they had to use AIME tools or learning apps or any other tool they wanted to create a digitized exercise, for example, crossword, a quiz, etc., and to upload them into the virtual class. Another example was that of my students at the cinema club had to watch a specific movie, answer using their Google Doc notebook to some questions which were prepared for them according to the British Film Institute framework for film education, and then students had to prepare a task for their classmates and share it using the virtual classes wall. So technology-based learning helped not only to deliver teaching, but also to support and assist students and to provide new forms of students' assessment. Collaborative communities of inquiry and practice in e-twinning previous experience helped both teachers to encourage collaborative work in e-twinning projects and in short projects within the curriculum, and students to use collaborative tools to work in groups in national and European level in order to finish our e-twinning project. Another important pillar of e-twinning is promoting continuous and professional development of staff. An important component of implementing the strategy of continuity was professional development for teachers, principally using online platforms that allowed them to communicate with their peers. Knowledge and skills were very important for teachers to embrace new technology. So they had ongoing professional development, attending related to remote teaching webinars. Opportunities for knowledge sharing and mobilization amongst teachers, not only within our school team, but also during several webinars. Good ideas spread and are scaled across the school system. So we are going to the promoting collaborative learning practices with staff and students, the fifth pillar of e-twinning. And in our school, I can say that we have a climate of cohesion in the team of teachers. Teachers collaborated in various ways during the lockdown period, either in teams to manage various tasks forwarded by the school head in the spirit of the shared leadership, and to help others with their knowledge and expertise, especially those with ICT knowledge. Teachers collaborated with families and parents to encourage them in helping kids while they were at home. Virtual classes served as an open window to the world during a closed period. Climate of cohesion among students kept on the rules and routines. We kept on developing our e-twinning projects to encourage students' collaboration, not only national level, as I mentioned, but also with partners from abroad. And what we gained from all these things from online learning. Our school worked as a pillar of support for staff, students, and teachers in the lockdown period. The significant access to technology that teachers have and their readiness to engage in multiple modalities of collaboration and the professional and development using technology. High level of teacher training contributed to overcome the obstacles. increased flexibility. Students chose their learning environment, their home, either they were in the living room or at their own bedroom, their learning schedule, of course, and their own pace. I still can remember that when I one night had to visit these Google Docs and review students' tasks, one of them was online after midnight. And then the other day, he commented on this, "Oh, miss, you were awake at this time." And I said, "Oh, you were awake at the same time," writing in this Google Doc. Of course, teachers were ready to integrate content into learning games, online games. Games not only to make learning fun, but also help us to measure our progress. Of course, it was our immediate response, and not only from us, but also from parents and students. And I have to mention that 232 students from 246 were participated more or less in these virtual classes. It was a massive response from the early ages, while 5th and 6th graders were more lazy. And the students were eager to continue this learning process and cultivate their digital skills. Of course, there were a lot of cons. Disparities in access to technology, connectivity, and skills to engage with technology faced by students from different socioeconomic groups. Lack of interpersonal communication, as the structured environment of school helps children regulated health behaviors. The lack of routine when school stops can have negative health consciousness. And humans are social and thrive with face-to-face connection. Of course, a hug emoji is not the same as a real hug. Individual learning can be a blessing for some students that they don't feel comfortable in classrooms. While social interaction can be the key for some, it can be a big burden for introverts. Schools and teachers may need to expand and intensify their relationship with parents and families. Many parents have suffered in maintaining their children learning and are in need of support and guidance. So our students, my students, talking more specific, were eager at the end of May to come back to school and were more lazy in attending their virtual classes. So we came back at school in the 1st of June. Of course, the secondary level were at schools during the May. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So schools opened again for primary level in rotation with increased social distances and increased spaces in class, reducing the groups of students. For example, I had 22 students and I had to divide them into groups of 11. Of course, shortening the school week, changing the lesson and break times across classes. And then my school applied one more innovative strategy here, while all the schools in Greece had this rotation. Because we had a lot of spare times, you know, the all-day school and the clubs were not allowed to work after the school curriculum. We had a lot of spare hours, so we decided to bring all the 6th graders at school. That means 44 students every day, and teach them every day in separate groups. For example, I did the first 2 hours language, Greek language in the one group, and then I had to repeat it after 2 hours of a break to the other group. Of course, we have different breaks, and we didn't have school canteens and so on. What will be the new school year for schools in Greece? They are planned to reopen at the 7th of September. Welcoming all kids with a series of new measures, of course, wearing masks after the age of 10, And these measures are changing due to the number of new infections. One of these, of course, will be also the online learning in case we have infections to a class. How it could be more meaningful. Of course, it is equally important to continue the already ongoing efforts to build an infrastructure for online and remote learning, and to develop the capacity of students and teachers to learn and to teach in that way, including the augmenting capacity of students to learn independently. Beyond the COVID pandemic, there are evident benefits to students in expanding their learning time and learning opportunities beyond the walls of the school through distance learning. The plans of school reopening could consider blended modalities to access the curriculum for all students. Access to online learning and to independent learning using technology can facilitate the acquisition of essential 21st century competencies such as collaboration, communication, independent research, and higher order cognitive skills. The momentum created by the strategies of education continuity in their use should be sustained and deepened on behalf of making education more relevant to the needs of the 21st century skills. Countries may need to increase their investments in digital learning opportunities, not just to prepare for future school closures, but also to enhance blended learning and innovative learning environments. Because all of us, for sure, have a lot of brilliant ideas. Can we go to the next slide, please? But if we can't get these brilliant ideas across, we won't get us nowhere. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present you what my school did all this time and my thoughts about online learning.
Angelica, thank you so very much for your presentation there. Again, guys, we have made a really good time today. What I would suggest, however, as we have now just crossed the 2-hour mark, we have a number of questions that we've pulled together. What worked well last time was what we will look to do is probably carry the conversation on in the Facebook group. So we'll post those questions to our speakers there. And if you guys want to continue having a chat, then that's the best place to do it. Again, if there is any questions that pop into your head in the meantime, again, just throw them in there. We're going to be monitoring it most of the time anyway. So let's wrap up again by saying thank you all so very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. Whatever time it is, in whatever part of the world you are, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day / evening. And we will be sending out, as I say, the recordings, what are we today, Thursday? Either tomorrow, Friday, but more likely on the Monday to all the lovely members out there. So guys, I wish you all very happy weekend, and I will catch you on the next call.